The vast darkness of space twinkled with distant stars as Admiral Dak gazed at the view screen. His fleet of 30 warships formed a perfect crescent behind his flagship, the dominant Will. The Admiral's gray skin pulled tight across his face as he smiled. For 20 cycles, the Terran Confederation had ruled this sector without challenge. Today would be no different. Admiral, we've detected an unknown vessel at coordinates 227 to 893, reported Officer Mev. It appears to be alone. Dak leaned forward in his command chair. Show me. The view screen shifted to display a sleek, silver ship. It was smaller than the dominant Will, but had an unusual design the Admiral had never seen before. The vessel glided through space with a silent grace that somehow bothered him. Scan it, Dak ordered. Officer Mev pressed several buttons on his console. Initial scans show moderate weapon systems, standard shield configuration. Nothing remarkable, Admiral. Origin. Unknown, sir. The design matches nothing in our database. Admiral Dak stood up and walked closer to the view screen. The Terran had conquered 12 species and mapped most of this galactic arm. An unknown ship meant an unknown civilization, and unknown civilizations were to be either dominated or destroyed. Those were the ways of the Terran. It's entering our territory, said Mev. Should we issue a warning? No, replied Dak. Let's greet our visitor properly. Position all ships in attack formation Delta. Show them the full might of the Confederation. The 30 Terran ships moved in perfect harmony, surrounding the lone vessel in a display of overwhelming force. Dak felt a surge of pride. No species had ever withstood such a show of power. Captain Ju Park of the HS Thunderchild sipped her coffee as she reviewed the mission parameters. The Thunderchild was humanity's newest deep space exploration vessel, disguised as a light patrol ship. Its true capabilities were classified at the highest level. Captain, called Lieutenant Min from the sensor station. We have multiple contacts ahead. Park set her coffee down. How many? 30 large vessels, Mom. They're arranging themselves around us. The bridge crew fell silent. This was supposed to be a routine patrol through uncharted space. First contact scenarios were always possible, but not with an entire fleet. Defensive status? Asked Park. All systems nominal, replied Security Chief Ta. Core shields are inactive but ready. Weapon systems on standby. Park nodded. Human ships never showed their full capabilities until necessary. The Thunderchild looked ordinary from the outside, but inside it carried the most advanced technology Earth had developed since the Quantum Wars. They're hailing us, Captain, said Communications Officer G. On screen, ordered Park. The main display lit up with the image of a gray-skinned alien with 3 yellow eyes arranged in a triangle pattern. Its mouth was a thin line across what Park assumed was its face. Unidentified ship. This is Admiral Dak of the Terran Confederation. Surrender immediately or be destroyed, the alien commander transmitted. The translation matrix took only seconds to process the language. Park kept her expression neutral. This is Captain Ju Park of the Earth vessel, HS Thunderchild. We are on a peaceful exploration mission, and we're unaware this was claimed territory. We apologize for any misunderstanding. She signaled G to mute the transmission. Analysis. Lieutenant Min looked up from his console. Their weapons are charged, Captain. Scans show mid-level technology, roughly comparable to our public specs. They're positioning as if for combat. They seem awfully confident with those odds, observed Ta. Park unmuted the channel. Admiral Dak, we have no hostile intentions. Perhaps we could discuss. Silence, interrupted the alien. Your vessel is alone and outmatched. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. The Terran Confederation claims all technology of lesser species. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Humanity had faced this situation before in its early days of space exploration. It never ended well for the aggressors. Admiral Dak turned to his weapons officer. They continue to talk. Typical of weak species. Sir, said Officer Mev hesitantly. "Our deep scans are showing some unusual readings from their ship. There seem to be energy signatures we can't identify." "Instrument errors," Dak dismissed with a wave. "Their ship is barely half the size of ours, and they're alone. No species would send a single vessel into unknown territory unless it was expendable." "Yes, Admiral." Dak watched as the human captain continued speaking on the view screen. Her calm demeanor irritated him. Didn't she understand the situation? 30 warships against one. The outcome was inevitable. "Enough talk," he said. "Send the boarding parties." Officer Mev looked uncomfortable. "Sir, protocol suggests we should gather more information before. Are you questioning my orders?" Dak's voice became dangerously soft. "No, Admiral. Preparing boarding parties." Dak returned his attention to the view screen. "Your attempts at diplomacy are noted, Captain Park. But the Terek do not negotiate with inferior beings. Your technology will serve our Confederation well." He signaled to cut the transmission. The human ship remained motionless, seemingly accepting its fate, just as he expected. "Admiral," called the sensor officer suddenly. "I'm detecting power surges throughout their vessel." Dak frowned. "What kind of power surges?" "Unknown, sir. But there." The officer stopped, eyes widening. "Sir, these readings can't be right. The energy levels are impossible for a ship that size." For the first time, Admiral Dak felt a twinge of uncertainty. He looked back at the screen where the small silver ship floated quietly among his fleet. What had seemed like weakness in the human captain's words now seemed like something else entirely, something that made the Admiral's skin crawl. "Patience." Admiral Dak paced the bridge of the dominant will, his 3 yellow eyes blinking in sequence. The small human ship still hadn't surrendered despite being surrounded by 30 Terek warships. This defiance was unusual and slightly concerning. "Status report," he demanded. Chief Intelligence Officer Vex approached with a datapad. "Admiral, our deep scans of the human vessel are showing some unusual readings." "Explain," Dak ordered, snatching the pad. "The energy signature doesn't match their visible propulsion systems. There appears to be a secondary power source we cannot identify." Vex pointed to a series of fluctuating numbers. "These readings suggest their ship is generating enough power to run a vessel 5 times its size." Admiral Dak studied the readings with a frown. "Your instruments are malfunctioning. No ship that small could generate such power." "We've checked the scanners 3 times, Admiral. The readings are consistent." Dak handed the pad back with a dismissive gesture. "The human vessel is alone in unexplored space. They would not send their advanced technology without protection. This is clearly a scout ship, possibly with some experimental components. Nothing more." Officer Mev spoke up from his station. "Admiral, what if they're not alone? What if they have reinforcements nearby?" "Our long-range scanners detect nothing else in this sector," Dak replied confidently. "And even if they did have more ships, how could they possibly arrive in time? No species has developed faster-than-light communication that could summon help quickly enough." The bridge crew nodded in agreement. The Admiral's logic was sound based on everything they knew about space travel and communications. "Prepare the boarding parties," Dak ordered. "I want that ship captured intact." On the Thunderchild, Lieutenant Hannah Kim monitored the alien fleet's movements with growing concern. The tactical display showed all 30 ships positioning themselves in a standard encirclement pattern. "Sir, these readings can't be right," Lieutenant Kim told Captain Park. "They're positioning as if they believe they have tactical superiority." Captain Park moved to Kim's station and studied the display. "They believe they do have superiority. 30 ships against 1. But don't they realize what we're capable of?" Kim asked. "Even with our defensive shields at minimum visibility, their scanner should detect something unusual." "Assuming their technology is advanced enough to recognize what they're seeing," Park replied. "Remember your history, Lieutenant. When humanity first encountered the Arcturus, we thought their bioships were simple transport vessels until they demonstrated otherwise. The ship's AI, spoke through the bridge speakers. "Captain, I've completed initial combat simulations. If hostilities commence, I can neutralize the entire fleet without structural damage to the Thunderchild. However, I recommend against full deployment of our defensive capabilities." "Why is that?" ARIA asked Park. Based on their communication patterns and technology assessment, the Terek appear to be a Level 3 civilization. First contact protocols suggest minimizing technological shock when possible. Park nodded thoughtfully. Humanity had learned through painful experience that showing too much advanced technology too quickly could destabilize other species' societies. Some reacted with fear, others with religious reverence, but most responded with aggressive attempts to acquire what they couldn't understand. ARIA, prepare a targeted demonstration package. If they attack, disable their weapons and propulsion systems only. No hull breaches unless absolutely necessary. Understood, Captain. Defense parameters set. Lieutenant Kim looked at the captain with concern. They're continuing to close in. Do you think they'll listen to reason? I hope so, Park said, but history suggests otherwise. On the dominant will, frustration was mounting among the senior officers. The human captain had been talking for nearly 20 minutes, explaining concepts of peaceful exploration and the benefits of diplomatic relations. Admiral Dak had grown increasingly irritated. They continue to stall, he growled. These humans think they can talk their way out of submission. Strategic Officer Lum had been listening carefully to the human transmissions. Admiral, I believe there may be cultural factors at play. Their emphasis on diplomacy suggests they might come from a confederation of species similar to our own. Nonsense, said Dak. No true confederation would allow a subordinate species to speak for them. These humans are clearly isolated and weak, hoping to avoid conflict through excessive talking. Weapons Officer Tell approached with a concerned expression. Admiral, the boarding craft are ready, but I must report another anomaly. Our targeting systems are having difficulty maintaining a lock on critical areas of the human vessel. It's as if there's some kind of interference. Dak slammed his fist on the command console. More instrument errors. Is nothing working properly today? Sir, Tech Specialist Nar said hesitantly, what if their ship has some kind of defensive technology we haven't encountered before? The bridge fell silent as all eyes turned to the specialist. Nar swallowed nervously but continued. The power readings, the targeting difficulties. What if they're not errors? What if the human ship is actually more advanced than it appears? Admiral Dak stared at the specialist for a long moment before breaking into a harsh laugh. One ship, more advanced than 30 of our finest warships. Impossible. The Terek Confederation has conquered 12 species and assimilated their technologies. No single vessel could stand against our combined might. He turned back to the view screen where Captain Park was still speaking calmly. End this charade, Dak ordered. Launch attack pattern Omega. Target their engines and weapons. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. As the bridge crew hurried to comply, Dak allowed himself a satisfied smile. Soon, human technology would join the Terek collection, and these verbose creatures would learn their place in the galactic hierarchy. On his private screen, the strange energy readings from the human ship suddenly spiked to levels that should have been impossible. For the first time, a flicker of doubt crossed Admiral Dak's mind, but it was too late to reconsider. The Terek fleet moved into attack position, completely unaware that they were about to make the greatest miscalculation in their Confederation's history. The 30 ships of the Terek fleet moved with perfect precision, taking up their battle positions around the lone human vessel. The formation was called the Spear of Conquest, a pattern that had brought victory in 17 major engagements across 3 star systems. At the center, Admiral Dak's flagship, the Dominant Will, prepared to coordinate the attack. On the bridge, the Admiral stood tall, his gray skin flushed with a purple tint of excitement. This would be an easy victory to add to his already impressive record. All ships report ready, Admiral, said Officer Telephone. Weapons are charged and locked on target. Excellent, Dak replied, adjusting his ceremonial collar. He always wore it during conquests. Open a channel to the human vessel. All frequencies. The communications officer complied, and Dak cleared his throat before speaking. Your primitive vessel stands no chance against our might. Admiral Dak broadcast, his voice booming with authority. Surrender the location of your homeworld immediately. He smiled, imagining the fear his words would instill in the humans. Soon, they would become the 13th species to fall before the Terran Confederation. We're receiving a response. Admiral, the communications officer reported. Put it through, Dak ordered, expecting to hear pleas for mercy. The calm face of Captain Ju Park appeared on the main view screen. There was no sign of panic or fear in her expression, which irritated Dak immensely. This is Captain Ju Park of the Earth vessel Thunderchild, she said evenly. We have no hostile intentions. I strongly advise against aggressive action. Dak snorted with derision. You advise me? I command 30 warships. Your single vessel is surrounded with no hope of escape. Admiral, Park continued patiently, we wish to avoid conflict. Perhaps we could meet to discuss. Enough. Dak slammed his fist on his command chair. Your stalling tactics will not work. You have 5 minutes to transmit the coordinates of your homeworld, or we will demonstrate our power. He cut the transmission and turned to his weapons officer. Target their primary engine housing. A warning shot. Nothing more. Yes, Admiral. Dak returned to his chair, settling in to watch the humans squirm. 4 minutes passed in tense silence. Sir, the communications officer said, we're receiving no further transmissions from the humans. They're testing my patience, Dak growled. Prepare to fire. Officer Mev approached cautiously. Admiral, might I suggest we fire, Dak ordered, cutting him off. The Dominant will shuddered slightly as its main cannon discharged a brilliant beam of energy directly at the Thunderchild's engine section. The beam crossed the space between the ships in less than a second. What happened next made every Terran on the bridge freeze in shock. Just before the energy beam reached the human ship, a barely visible field of blue light flashed into existence. The Terran weapon hit this field and simply disappeared. There was no explosion, no deflection, not even a ripple of impact. The energy was simply gone, as if it had never existed. Stunned silence fell across the bridge. Admiral Dak stood up slowly. His 3 eyes widened to their fullest extent. What happened? He finally managed to ask. Officer Tell checked his console repeatedly. Weapon discharge confirmed, sir. Energy signature tracked to target. And then, nothing. It's as if the energy was absorbed. Impossible, whispered Dak. No shield technology can do that. The communications officer suddenly called out, Sir, we're receiving reports from all ships. They're detecting a massive power surge from the human vessel. Inside the Thunderchild, Captain Park sat calmly in her command chair as the alien weapon was neutralized by the ship's quantum absorption field. The energy from the Terran weapon was captured, converted, and channeled directly into the Thunderchild's reserve power cells. Attack detected and neutralized, reported ARIA, the ship's eye. No damage sustained. Power reserves increased by 3.2%. Thank you, ARIA, Park replied. She turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Kim, status of the alien fleet. Lieutenant Hannah Kim studied her console. They appear to be in a state of confusion, Captain. Multiple communication bursts between their ships. No further weapons charging detected. Yet. They're reassessing, Park said, but they'll attack again once they recover from their surprise. Tactical options. Security Chief Ta spoke up. We could disable their flagship as a demonstration. Show them what we're capable of without causing casualties. Park considered this option. Humanity's first contact protocols emphasized restraint, but also clarity. Sometimes, a clear demonstration of technological superiority prevented further aggression. "ARIA, can you target the flagship's weapons systems precisely?" Park asked. "Affirmative, Captain. I can disable their main cannon with 99.8% accuracy. No crew casualties projected." Park nodded. "Prepare targeting solution but hold fire. Let's give them one more chance at diplomacy." The communications officer, G, turned from his station. "Captain, we're being hailed by the alien flagship." "On screen," Park ordered. Admiral Dak's face appeared, his gray skin now much paler than before. His 3 eyes darted nervously as he spoke. "Human vessel," he began, his previous arrogance notably diminished. "What technology did you use against our weapon?" Park kept her expression neutral. "Admiral Dak, that was a standard defensive measure. We absorbed the energy from your attack. No damage was done to either vessel, which is our preference." "Absorbed?" The alien commander seemed genuinely confused. "That's not possible." "And yet you witnessed it," Park replied calmly. "Now shall we discuss peaceful alternatives to this confrontation?" Before Dak could respond, alarms sounded on the Terek bridge. Park could see officers rushing to their stations behind the admiral. "Sir," someone called off-screen, "multiple ships are firing." Dak's eyes widened in panic. "I gave no such order." On the tactical display, Park could see that 5 Terek vessels had independently launched attacks. It seemed not all alien commanders were willing to wait for orders. "ARIA, defensive measures," Park ordered calmly. The Thunderchild's defense grid activated fully. The ship was suddenly surrounded by a visible blue field that pulsed with energy. As the Terek weapons struck this field, they were not merely absorbed but redirected. Beams of energy bent like light through water, curving away from the human ship in graceful arcs before dissipating harmlessly into space. On the view screen, Admiral Dak watched in absolute shock. His mighty fleet had launched an attack that should have crippled any vessel, and the human ship stood completely untouched. "Captain," Lieutenant Kim reported, "the alien fleet is repositioning. All ships are now charging weapons." Park sighed. Sometimes, diplomacy needed help from a demonstration of strength. "ARIA," she said quietly, "implement Defense Protocol Delta 7. "Acknowledged, Captain," the AI responded. Defense Protocol Delta 7 activated. Park looked back at the view screen where Admiral Dak was frantically giving orders to his crew. "Admiral," she said, drawing his attention back to her, "you should tell your fleet to stand down. Immediately." The blue field around the Thunderchild began to pulse more rapidly, gathering energy as the 30 Terek warships prepared to fire. "Defensive countermeasures online," announced Tactical Officer Juno Lee, his fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Targeting solutions ready, Captain." Captain Park nodded, her expression grave. She had hoped for a peaceful resolution, but the Terek fleet was now fully committed to attack. All 30 ships had their weapons charged and aimed at the Thunderchild. "ARIA, bring all systems to combat readiness," Park ordered. "Minimum force protocols." "Acknowledged, Captain," responded the ship's AI in a calm, measured voice. "Quantum defense matrix activated. Matter/antimatter containment field stable. Calculating optimal response patterns." Around the bridge, the lighting shifted to a subtle blue hue, the only visible sign that the Thunderchild was now operating at full combat capacity. Unlike the showmanship of the Terek vessels with their glowing weapon ports and flashing shield barriers, human warships were designed to reveal as little as possible about their true capabilities. Lieutenant Kim monitored the alien fleet's movements. "They're coordinating their attack, Captain. All ships will fire simultaneously in approximately 15 seconds. Park took a deep breath. "ARIA, calculate minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat without loss of life." "Calculation complete." ARIA responded instantly. "Recommended action: targeted electromagnetic pulse combined with focused graviton bursts. Estimated effect: complete disabling of propulsion and weapon systems across all 30 vessels. Projected casualties, 0. Execute on my mark, Park said, her voice firm but not harsh. She looked at the main view screen where Admiral Dak was visible, giving what appeared to be final attack orders. The Terran commander had no idea what was about to happen. Park touched her command chair interface. Admiral Dak, this is your final warning. Stand down your fleet immediately. The alien commander's face contorted with what might have been laughter. You dare to threaten us? 30 ships against 1. Your bravery is admirable, but foolish, human. It's not bravery, Admiral. It's certainty. Park's voice was quiet now. Area. Execute. For a brief moment, nothing seemed to happen. The Thunderchild remained motionless. No visible weapons emerged from its smooth hull. No energy beams lashed out at the surrounding fleet. Then, a barely perceptible ripple of blue-white energy expanded outward from the human ship in all directions simultaneously. It moved so quickly that it seemed almost instantaneous, a perfect sphere of force that engulfed all 30 Terran vessels in less than a second. As the energy wave passed through each ship, their external lights flickered and died. Weapon ports that had been glowing with charged energy suddenly went dark. Engines that had been burning bright blue now faded to nothing. On the bridge of the Thunderchild, displays showed the status of each Terran vessel in real time. One by one, 30 red threat indicators turned yellow, then green, neutralized. All targets disabled, Captain, reported Lee, unable to keep a note of awe from his voice, despite his professional training. Propulsion and weapons systems on all 30 vessels are offline. Life support and artificial gravity remain functional. Park nodded. Communications. Their primary systems are down, replied Communications Officer J. But they should still have emergency channels available. Open a channel to the flagship. Emergency frequencies. On the dominant will, chaos reigned. Emergency lighting cast a dim red glow across the bridge as officers frantically worked to restore power to critical systems. Warning alarms blared from multiple stations as damage reports flooded in from throughout the ship. Admiral Dak stared in disbelief at his command console as it flickered and died before his eyes. The tactical display showing his proud fleet had frozen, then gone black. Status indicators for all 30 ships showed the same alarming condition. Weapons offline, engines offline, primary power offline. How? Impossible, he whispered, his 3 eyes blinking rapidly in distress. Admiral, called Officer Mev from the emergency communication station. We're receiving a transmission from the human vessel. It's all we can receive right now. Dak straightened his posture, trying to maintain some dignity despite the disaster unfolding around him. Put it through. A small emergency screen lit up with Captain Park's image. The human commander appeared calm, almost sympathetic. Admiral Dak, this is Captain Park. Your fleet has been neutralized but not destroyed. Your life support systems remain operational. No one has been harmed. Dak struggled to comprehend what had happened. What did you do to our ships? A precise electromagnetic pulse combined with graviton displacement, Park explained, though she knew the technology was likely beyond Terran understanding. The effect is temporary on your life support and basic functions, but your weapons and propulsion systems will require significant repairs. 30 ships, Dak said, his voice hollow with shock. You disabled 30 warships in seconds. Yes, Park replied simply, and we could have done much worse. Around Dak, his officers had fallen silent, listening to the exchange with expressions of fear and disbelief. The mighty Terran Confederation fleet, rendered helpless by a single vessel's attack that they hadn't even seen coming. What happens now? Dak asked, a question he had never imagined himself asking an enemy. Now we talk, Admiral, Park said. As I suggested earlier, representatives from Earth will arrive shortly to establish proper diplomatic relations. Until then, we will provide any assistance your crews require. Dak looked around at his disabled bridge, at the emergency lights casting shadows across the faces of his stunned crew. In 30 years of military service, he had never experienced defeat, and certainly not one so swift and complete. "You could have destroyed us," he said, the realization dawning on him slowly. "Why didn't you?" Park's expression softened slightly. "Because that's not who we are, Admiral. Humanity learned long ago that true power isn't measured by what you can destroy, but by what you choose to preserve." As the implications of those words sank in, Dak realized that everything the Terek thought they knew about warfare, about power, about their place in the galaxy, had just been proven wrong in less than 30 seconds. Outside the flagship's viewport, the sleek silver form of the Thunderchild hung against the backdrop of stars, no longer appearing small or vulnerable, but terrifying in its quiet efficiency. Around it, 30 once mighty Terek warships drifted powerless, like toys scattered by a child's hand. The 27th Conquest campaign of Admiral Dak's illustrious career had just become the Terek Confederation's most humbling defeat, and it had taken less than half a minute. 3 days after the incident, the Earth diplomatic vessel Olive Branch arrived at the coordinates where the Thunderchild still maintained position near the disabled Terek fleet. The sleek white ship was smaller than the Thunderchild, but moved with the same quiet efficiency that had so unnerved Admiral Dak when he first encountered humans. Emergency repairs had restored basic functions to the Terek vessels, but their weapons and propulsion systems remained offline, a precaution insisted upon by Captain Park until formal diplomatic talks could begin. Admiral Dak stood rigidly in the dominant Will's reception chamber, his formal military attire replaced by the more subdued diplomatic uniform of the Terek Confederation. Around him, 6 high-ranking officers and 2 civilian advisors waited nervously. None had slept well since their defeat. "The human diplomats are docking now, Admiral," reported Officer Mev. Dak nodded stiffly. 3 days ago, he had been preparing to add another species to the Confederation's list of conquests. Now he was preparing to beg for mercy. The reversal stung his pride deeply. The airlock cycled open, and 3 humans entered. Leading them was a woman of average height with short black hair and calm, intelligent eyes. Unlike the Terek, who favored ornate uniforms to display rank and achievements, the humans wore simple gray suits with only small silver pins on their collars to indicate their positions. "Admiral Dak," said Captain Park, who had accompanied the diplomats from the Thunderchild, "may I present Ambassador Subinyun of the Earth Diplomatic Corps." The ambassador stepped forward and bowed slightly. "Admiral, thank you for receiving us despite the unfortunate circumstances of our first contact." Dak returned the bow awkwardly. Terek did not bow to conquered species, but then they had never been on this side of a conquest before. "Ambassador," he replied stiffly, "the Terek Confederation acknowledges your superiority in this engagement. We are prepared to discuss terms." Ambassador Yoon smiled gently. "This isn't about superiority, Admiral. It's about understanding. Perhaps we could sit and talk as equals." The subtle correction was not lost on Dak, but he gestured toward the conference table where refreshments had been prepared. As they settled into their seats, he noted how relaxed the humans appeared. No weapons visible, no guards stationed at the door. Their confidence was unnerving. "Before we begin formal negotiations," Ambassador Yoon said, "I believe some context would be helpful. You encountered one of our patrol vessels and mistook it for something less significant." "We scanned your ship," Dak responded defensively. "It appeared to be lightly armed. Appearances can be deceiving," Yoon replied, "especially when dealing with species that evolved along different paths." She activated a small device on the table, which projected a holographic display of Earth's solar system. "Our history is filled with conflict," explained Ambassador Yoon to the alien delegation. "It taught us never to build warships that could be defeated by numbers alone." The hologram shifted to show ancient human battles, first with primitive weapons, then increasingly sophisticated technology. "For thousands of years we fought each other," Yoon continued. We became very good at war before we understood how to maintain peace. When we finally reached the stars, we carried those lessons with us. Dak watched the historical images with growing unease. The humans had evolved through warfare just as the Terek had, but their path had taken a different turn. The first alien species we encountered attacked without warning. Yoon explained as the hologram showed a massive space battle. We were nearly destroyed, but we survived, adapted, and decided that no human vessel would ever be vulnerable again. No matter how far from home, no matter how outnumbered. The Terek officers exchanged uncomfortable glances. This was exactly what had happened to them. "What are your terms?" Dak asked, bracing himself for harsh demands. Ambassador Yoon deactivated the hologram. "The United Earth government proposes a non-aggression pact and open diplomatic relations. No reparations, no territory concessions, no technology transfers. Simply peace and the opportunity for mutual benefit through trade and cultural exchange." Dak blinked his 3 eyes in confusion. "That's all. After we attacked you." "Captain Park followed our protocols perfectly," Yoon said with a slight smile. "Minimum force necessary to neutralize the threat. No lives were lost. We see no need for punishment when education will suffice." The implication slowly dawned on the Admiral. The humans could have destroyed his entire fleet, but chose not to. They could now demand anything from the Terek Confederation, and likely get it, but instead offered peace on equal terms. "We accept your proposal," Dak said finally, his voice quiet but firm. "The Terek Confederation will honor a peace treaty with Earth." The details took hours to finalize, but by the end of the day, a historic agreement was signed. The Terek would recognize Earth's territorial claims in this sector, and humans would acknowledge the Terek Confederation as a sovereign power. Trade protocols were established, and cultural exchange programs proposed. As the human diplomats prepared to depart, Admiral Dak approached Ambassador Yoon privately. "There's one thing I don't understand," he said. "Your ship, the Thunderchild, is it truly just a patrol vessel?" Yoon's expression revealed nothing. "By our standards, yes. It's designed for extended independent operations in unexplored space." "And your warships?" The ambassador smiled politely. "Let's hope you never have reason to find out, Admiral." 2 weeks later, the Thunderchild prepared to resume its patrol route. The Terek fleet had been repaired with human assistance and returned to their territory with a new understanding of their place in the galactic order. On the bridge, Captain Park reviewed their new assignment while Lieutenant Hannah Kim finalized the navigation calculations. "It seems our little encounter has caused quite a stir," Kim said, looking up from her console. "Intelligence reports that news of the incident has spread to at least 7 other species in this quadrant." "Not surprising," Park replied. "The Terek have a reputation as conquerors. Seeing them humbled would be significant news." Kim smiled slightly. "It will be remembered as the 30-second war," she joked. "The war that lasted 30 seconds." The bridge crew chuckled, breaking the formal atmosphere that had prevailed during the diplomatic proceedings. "Let's hope it leads to 30 centuries of peace instead," Park said, though she knew human history suggested otherwise. Species rarely change their fundamental nature after one defeat, no matter how decisive. As the Thunderchild engaged its main drive and accelerated smoothly away from the site of the brief confrontation, its crew carried with them the knowledge that their actions had reshaped galactic politics. The Terek would spread word of human capabilities, and other aggressive species would recalculate their approaches. For a time at least, human vessels would travel more safely through this sector of space, not because of the fear they had instilled, but because of the restraint they had shown. In the diplomatic archives of a dozen worlds, the incident would be studied for generations, not for the overwhelming technological superiority demonstrated, but for what happened after. Victory was easy. Mercy was the true measure of strength, and the humans had shown both in equal measure.